Sometimes I think the word game is stuck on almost everything that isn't serious. If you play music, if you draw pictures with a computer, that's not a game. You don't get a score, but we call it games, and there's sometimes this down thing. Don't play games, don't play around on the computer. And yet there's a lot of good can come from game playing.
Hey there, all right, happy hump day, everybody. We're back with another installment of Ask Tim. So, since people were not using the Teams call-in, it's kind of a pain to get set up. We're just going to be doing where you post questions in chat. I've pinned the comment. If you look in the chat, you'll see it. That tells you how to post things. So if you do need to share like a link or something with us, or a picture that goes along with your question. So if you do have a question, post in Discord what your username is on YouTube, if it's different, and then I'll be able to share that with everybody. So let's get into it. So just a quick update before we get going. I'll let you guys ask some questions in chat. So go ahead and get those in there, and then I'll take a look at them and read them out and answer them. But I did want to touch base on the last stream. So yesterday we did a stream on ANET's ET4 resin printer. I was having issues getting the print to stick to the plate, and followed their leveling guide and everything. Thought I had it smushed down low enough, but apparently I didn't. So I ended the stream and then I was talking with my buddy Joel and ended up just like really pushing it down and setting the Z low, and that seemed to fix it. So I did get a successful print out of it, and I'm actually just having my phone sync my photos up to my computer here so I can show you guys, because it came out really good. I have to take it off. I have to take it off and cure it, but it came out really good. I'm just closing out some unnecessary stuff I have open. There we go. All right, so this is how it looked. I paused it, and you can see I was like, cool, it stuck. It started printing. And then this morning I came in and I had a finished benchy. So now this has not been cleaned at all. It looks pretty good. So my next step will be to take this off of here. And I did pause it at a couple things. I think you can see a line here where I paused it. It might be super visible, but it doesn't look to have affected it. And that's another thing too I want to test. Like if you have to pause it and add more resin or do something else, you want to make sure that's actually resuming correctly. So, but I'm pretty happy with the result I see here. I'm going to pull this off and put it in there. We have the Anycubic wash and cure station. So I'm going to take this off this evening, put it in the wash and cure station, run it through a wash with some IPA, and then run it through the curing process. And I'm sure you guys will, I'm sure I'll show it off at some point once I have that. But I'm going to run another benchy right after I clear that off and see if it sticks then, or if you're going to have to do this every single time. So it is working. ANET actually did post a comment on the video, and you know, we're like, hey, try this and that, and like it was somewhat helpful information, but not really. But I appreciate that they did reach out, so they are keeping an eye on like if people are posting stuff about their products. I'm sure, assuming they keep an eye on our channel, because they do stay in contact with us. They've actually sent us quite a few machines this year, and like I said, their hardware quality seems to have been going up. You know, like I said, my only gripe with their ET4 and the ET5 was the software. It was rough. So let's see here. So Jerry's teacher is replying to through Jerry Fuller's account. He's looking for a translucent red resin like that for my Anycubic Photon. Do I have any recommendations? I wish I did. But I'm just getting into resin myself. I do have 6 resin machines, but I haven't sat down and actually spent a ton of time with that. But I have used Anycubic stuff. I've heard a lot of people, and if anybody has in the comments, go ahead and chime in. But I have heard a lot of good stuff about Elegoo's resin. And they have them on Amazon, and for like, it looks like a 500 gram bottle is only, oh, hang on, I gotta close out my, oh boy, come on, exit Teams. All right, a 500 gram bottle is only $18, so this looks real close to what the ANET stuff came out. So, and I know Elegoo's had pretty good feedback, and they also have I haven't tried this out, but water washable resin, so you don't actually have to use IPA. This is something I'm gonna have to order some of these, because this stuff piques my interest, and it looks like it's about the same price as the regular stuff. And then they also have like their ABS which I'm assuming is gonna be a little more durable. But I have heard a lot of good stuff about Elegoo's resin. I don't know if Matt's watching, Matt, Kumamad's Matt, but he would be able to chime in because he does a lot of resin printing. So resin is something I'm getting into and actually allocating time to. So I've bought printers here and there and done quick test prints and done quick little prints. And the results I've had on the resin machines have been great. I just want to dive more into it and be more well-versed on it, troubleshooting and tuning, that kind of stuff. So that's something I'm diving into more now. Because I'd also like to be able to use resin for certain things for not only my hobbies, but also some stuff for when we prototype stuff with TH3D. But anyways, let's see who we got in the chat. I got Sean's in here, John Barnes, Mike Cassell, Robbie Mack, Matt from the UK. I don't know what time it is over there by you, buddy. Actually, I don't think it should be too late because it's only 2 p.m. here. So, so that's it. The ANET seems to be printing well. I will keep using it and see if it's reliable. But aside from like it not using G2 box, doesn't seem like it's a bad machine. But time will tell. Also, one thing that we just I got one more revision of this printing because if you see here, it's slightly off, and I wanted to have this filament path as straight as possible. So this is actually a bracket that we designed here for the Ender 5 Plus, so you can use our tough extruder with it. So these will be coming to the shop very soon, and these have to be printed in ABS because the motor will get warm with the geared extruder. So, but if you wanted to add the tough extruder onto your Ender 5 Plus, we will have a bracket available that we can sell to you with the extruder. So, and it'll use all the stock screws. So you're not going to have any extra screws. All the holes are set up to use the stock factory screws for their filament sensor, and then the ones that come with the actual extruder. So I'm excited to be putting this on my Ender 5 Plus. I did have the metal one that we sell, and I want to start doing some more stuff like faster printing, and the geared's going to let me go a lot faster. So I'm putting the larger nozzles in that one. Since it's such a big machine, and I've got a bunch of smaller ones with 0.4 nozzles, I want to like screw out with 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, that size. And I want something that's going to have a little more grunt to push that filament through. So I'm printing the final revision of that right now on my ABS machine. Do I have a favorite PLA brand and why? That's easy. That's Coax. I've mentioned them multiple times. The only gripe I have is their website is Coax LLC, so it actually has LLC in it. So it's a little harder to remember, but we buy a lot of filament from them. We buy a lot of ABS from them. We buy a lot of PLA from them. I've only had one issue with some ABS, and they took care of it. But I've never had an issue with their PLA. It's really good stuff. They've got different levels of like their PLA and the ABS. I've only used their standard stuff. So even their standard stuff is great, and they're very reasonable. Like these are 5-pound rolls for $50. If you want a big one, I have one actually sitting back there. But they're very reasonable, and these are made in the U.S. This is all made in the U.S. The plastic itself is made in the U.S. The extrusion all happens here in the U.S. They're out of Appleton, Wisconsin, and they're $24 for a roll for made in the U.S. plaques for a 1 kilogram roll. Like it's very, very well priced. I've been very happy with their stuff. So one thing I really like about them over some of the other brands I've used is the filament colors are very, very like full and vibrant. They're not dull. The color consistency throughout the entire roll is very consistent from roll to roll and throughout that whole roll. They also have something which I really, really like is their mystery PLA. So this is when they're switching colors on their line, they'll actually spool it onto a roll, and you can buy that, and it's $17. So it's the same dimensional accuracy and quality. You end up with these like kind of translucent colors that switch between different colors because they're switching colors on the line, and it looks really cool. So if you want to try out their filament for cheap and also get a random color that I've always had cool colors from their mystery ones. I haven't had one I've been disappointed with. Their mystery rolls are awesome, and they're $17. And like I said, they're based out of I believe Appleton, Wisconsin. I know they just moved. They're in Pulaski, Wisconsin now. So they were in Appleton, but they're out of Wisconsin. They're behind the Cheddar Curtain there, bud. But they're good people there. They make good plastic. I love their filament. So the only thing I have to say is, and I've noticed this with most US plastics, is that you do have to run them higher because there's less additives and whatnot. I've noticed a lot of Chinese brands, you have to run at a lower temperature, like 190 to 200. Coax, I usually run at like 220 to 230. And I get really good results out of it. Like it's a very consistent extrusion. Let's see here. Jack is asking, what do I think about the big Treetech Smart Filament Sensor? I haven't used it, and I've just had too many issues with their accessories. Like I said before on the channel, I was playing with their touchscreen that they have that's like the dual mode, and it ended up like I literally moved it on my desk, like had the board and the touchscreen just powered over 5 volts from the USB. Literally moved it up and like it was right here. I just picked it up, like LCD on the board, moved over here, and like right here, the LCD shut off. I was like, that's weird. So I set it down, I unplugged it, let it sit for a sec, plugged it back in, and the LCD in the board wouldn't boot. So the processor on the board got killed. Can only assume it would be the touchscreen because the touchscreen also wouldn't turn on. So I don't trust their stuff. Matt, why did that get? Wait, Matt, why did you? Oh, okay. I was like, why did that comment get removed? Sorry, Robert. So my apprehension with messing with those is I don't really trust their quality to not break other things. So it's a neat idea. I like the idea of being able to have they basically have like a little encoder that detects the filament moving and it does those pulses. Which is nice because instead of just getting, filament run out, it also can tell if you have like a jam or something. But again, I haven't had good luck with their stuff, and I don't want to recommend something and then it ends up, damaging our products, and then people are going to expect us to replace something that was damaged by another company's product. So, and if I officially support it or stuff, I don't want to be dealing with like people getting all pissy and being like, well, you guys said it's supported, it doesn't matter. Like, you think people won't do that, but you guys would be shocked at some of the stuff people have tried pulling when things have gotten damaged through third-party things getting connected to them. One of them being, we see a lot of people, they have big Treetech's BL Touch kit, and they don't follow a standard wiring color diagram, so people don't really know what the colors are, and they wire it up backwards and they short the 5-volt regulator out, and then they come back at us and be like, we got to replace it, it failed. It's like, well, no, you shorted out the rail because you didn't wire it correctly. Whereas if they had the actual Ant Clabs genuine one, with like their wiring harness that follows standard wiring colors, they would have been able to hook it up correctly on the first time. But anyways, I digress. So let's move on. I might order one just to play with it. I will entertain the thought, and I will order one to play with it, and then once I have it in hand and evaluate it, maybe it doesn't have the potential to cause the damage I'm worried about. Like, I'm trying to err on the side of caution because the reality is we're a business, and regardless, like if we say, oh yeah, this works with ours, and then that sensor damages our product, people are gonna be pushy about us replacing something even though something else from another manufacturer damaged it. So that's where we're coming from. But like I said, Big Treetech has some good ideas. It's just their execution is poor sometimes. That's the problem. So I'm just looking at the reviews here on Amazon. So a couple people said it was good. There's 3 reviews on this from the US. One is 5 stars, say it works great. But the other 2 people, one says waste of time and money. Constantly said there's a run out whether it's loaded or not. That's another thing too. If someone has this sensor and like, let's say we say, oh yeah, the Easy Board supports it, then if that sensor's broken and doesn't work, people are gonna waste our support time troubleshooting another company's product. Do you guys follow me? And we already get enough inquiries from Big Treetech's customers asking us for help because Big Treetech doesn't help their own customers. So, and there's another one, not sure, but I think I got a bad one. Sometimes it'll let me put 1 or 2 layers and it just pauses. Was going to try to return it, but I missed my return window. Tried messaging Big Treetech on Facebook for advice, but I've gotten no response. Color me shocked. So just in case someone says I'm lying, here you go. I'll just leave them there. You can see them. There's some other ones. This guy hasn't used it, but he left a 4-star review. Not well supported. Board is not yet functional. Let's see here. Works great once you configure the firmware. Correct. Yeah, there's not, what does this say? Tried 1,000 firmware configurations, not working. So color me surprised, because Big Treetech never releases hardware without proper firmware support. They never do that. I don't know. Oh, there's one left in stock. I'll buy it just to screw it. I'll try it. Okay, we'll see it. We'll see how bad it is and if it actually works or not. How's that? Then people can stop asking me about it. Like, could I build their own? Maybe I'll make my own. Maybe I'll look at what they did and make a better version of it. I mean, they all these other companies copy our ideas all the time. Maybe I'll do the same thing and do it better. That'd be wild. Hang on, I gotta fill out my requisition form here. Department R&D. What is this for? Testing. So I'll order one and play with it. I'm not going to officially support these because, like I said, like just think about it. If someone's using this, we say it's supported, and then they're like, "Well, this sensor doesn't work. It keeps triggering." They're not gonna message Big Treetech for help if that sensor is not working correctly. They're gonna message us, which means we're wasting time on a competitor's product. That's another one of the things, other than wondering if it can actually cause damage. Because here's the thing: it connects to the 5-volt ground and the signal, so there is a potential, depending on how the person wires it, to short the board out on the 5-volt rail. So, or if something happens to the sensor and it shorts out the 5-volt rail, that's what I mean by damage. Like that product damaging one of ours. So, let's see here. Scott asked me, what do you think of the ANET style bed probe? It's actually not a piezo, Scott. It's actually just two contacts that touch each other. I don't like it. I don't like those ones where you just stick them on and then you take them off. Call me old fashioned, but I like just having it mounted. I mean, those have been around for a while too. I think Anycubics use those too. I've seen them on some of their Delta printers have had that. Where you just put it on there. Like a Delta is a different animal too, because usually with a Delta, when you're doing bed leveling, you probe it out and it stores it, and you're not usually messing with it like with a Cartesian machine, because the bed's static. You got your towers; those don't usually move. So an application like that on a Delta, okay, I might use it. I have used it, but on like a Cartesian machine where your bed can, or like the bed slingers, I should say, there's a lot more room for that bed to shift and get out of skew, where you would benefit from getting a new mesh every time, which is what I do. And that's what we have our customers do that use our Easy ABL kits. They get a new mesh every time they print, so that way you always have a working mesh. It's getting a little warm. Anyways, let's see here. Robert Matthews, suggestion for the Easy plug. Might be cool to provide a clip, a clip on STL to the public. Users can print a clip to connect. Wait, users can print a clip to connect to the Easy plug to identify the printer as just. Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, you could just use a label maker, or write on the plug with Sharpie. I usually use a label maker. Because here's the thing too: if you got people that have like, I know a lot of people that have like 3 or 4 CR10s or 3 or 4 Enders, it could get confusing. Let's see. I'm trying. Hey guys, trying to Mark says, trying to reduce the weight on my direct drive E3. Can pancake steppers handle non-geared extruders? So, in my experience, I've had some work and I've had some that just don't have enough torque, like the same motor on certain applications. I don't personally recommend using a pancake stepper on a non-geared extruder. Can you do it? Absolutely. You can try it and see how it works out for you. But the thing with the pancake steppers in a printer application, you're mainly using those with a geared motor like this. This is the stock motor, but I could drive this even on the Ender 5 Plus with a pancake. Now, since this is mounted remotely, I don't care how much this motor weighs, so that's why I just use the stock one. I wouldn't recommend it, but I have seen people do it, and I have tested it. The problem is, if you get into a point where you need a little extra torque, maybe your hot end's starting to like jam up just a little bit, and if you had a little more torque, you could push through it. It would skip then. The thing I do like about the doing geared extruders like this is our tough extruder that we sell, is that because they have so much torque and they can push the filament so hard that there's failure modes that would normally stop a normal extruder from working, like if you get a jam in the heat break, where these have pushed through it and you don't even know what happens. So that's why I like the geared extruders, is they're more consistent because they do have that power behind them. That's just my recommendation. I probably wouldn't use a pancake with a non-geared extruder. Yes, you could do it. Yes, it'll fit. But you might run out of torque on that motor to where it's not going to push it through every single time, and not be as reliable as a bigger motor where it has more torque that can power through, you know, little issues with the hot end that normally would go unnoticed. Let's see. So the easier I think you're talking about the easier extruder is a good little extruder, but I think that's about the same price as ours. So yeah, the CNC Easy Extruder, it's a nice design. It's got a really tight path, but it's not geared. So, and just, you know, just comparing extruders, theirs is 35, okay, for this, and it's not geared. Versus we have our tough extruder, I think it's like 40 or 45. Yeah, it's 45. So, and this is geared. So for 10 bucks more, you can get a geared extruder. And this is based off of the E3D open source Titan design. And we include all the fittings. So like normally if you bought like a Titan through E3D, they'd upcharge you on the PTFE fitting. They'd upcharge you on the hardened steel gear. Like it's all included. So, or but these aren't the hardened, these are just the standard steel ones. But like the thumb wheel, they upcharge you on. The PTFE fitting, which is right here, they upcharge you on. We just include everything. So, but yeah, this is a good extruder if you don't need a geared extruder. This is really easy to load. Like, it lives up to the name. It's easy to load filament in it. It's got this nice knob. It's got the big release. So it's a nice extruder. It's just, you can get a little bit more features for your money from some of the stuff we have. Because other than being a little bit easier to use and load filament on, that easier extruder is really not offering you too much over the stock one or even like the cheaper metal ones we carry. The one thing it can do better is it does have a guided filament path, which our tough extruder also has, so you can do flexibles on it easier than the stock extruder. So John Walsh just got his Easy Flex kit. Awesome. Make sure to clean your bed. IMC says Big Tree would start giving out your number. Yeah. So it's like think about it, like the position we're in, like, you know, we want to support, like we have support for BL touch sensors in there. It's not something we use. It's not something we sell, but we recognize that some of our customers prefer that over like our Easy ABL. You know, but we don't see too many issues with the BL touch. Whereas like, since we've like, so this is just a little follow-up. So we put out firmware on our site, based on our Unified 2 for the SKR E3 boards. And what we've been seeing happen is like, we get people that'll buy like our Easy ABL kit. And even though like we don't have that listed as that's a supported board, but the firmware is there. So it's, you're on your own kind of thing. And if there's a problem with the actual Easy ABL kit, like it's not trigger or stuff, then our support can help you. But the problem is we have it seems like the people that use these cheap SKR boards are the most demanding people compared to people that have like our Easy board or even the stock boards. Like, we've had people that have expected us to help them with their entire SKR configuration just because they bought a bed leveling kit from us. So they were trying to save money by buying the cheaper board, and they don't know what they're doing, and then expect us to set up that whole product for them, which is not something we do. If you bought an Easy board, we absolutely will help you with that, because that's our product. If you have a stock factory board, we've already got all the firmware set up, so that's something we can assist with. But the thing we're noticing is that the people that do buy these cheaper boards are very demanding, to the point where I'm almost thinking about removing it from the site and not offering that firmware for download on our page anymore, because the people that have been using it have been very demanding and sometimes very rude. You know, I was just trying to do something nice, be like, here, like, you know, I have the boards here. I took time and tested them, and I know it works. So the bottom line is, I've tested it on all 3 of their versions of their boards on an actual machine, I know it works. So if there's something not working correctly, it's going to be on that user's printer side, or they didn't hook something up correctly, but that doesn't stop them from demanding help from us, especially people that download the firmware and aren't even customers. So, you know, I try to do something nice and it ends up, I don't know if biting us in the ass is the right way to phrase it, but, you know, they're expecting support just because we have that firmware out there. We're trying to do something nice. I know we have some of our customers that use their stuff, but there's also been a lot of people that aren't even customers that are very demanding of our time and have this entitlement that they believe that, well, just because I downloaded the software from you guys, you have to help me. You know, it sucks. I wish we didn't have that kind of stuff to deal with. I wish you guys also had more questions in the chat, so I stopped rambling. But since you guys aren't too chatty, I will show you where I'm at with the X1. Because I gotta finish taking photos of the install and how we're doing all this. If you guys have an X1, I know there's quite a few people that have been asking for it. I want to show you where I'm at with it. Let's see. Yeah, no good deed goes unpunished. Yeah, that's the phrase I was looking for, Mr. Butram. Mark says, my Surface print quality has gone down a little since going to the direct drive with the Hero Me Gen 5 dual fan. Overhangs are amazing, but it's a heavy head now, especially for a single Z-rod. Should have gone with your extruder with a pancake. If you just slow your print speed down a little bit, you should get a little bit better print speed or print quality. The reality is the heavier head is the slower you have to print, otherwise you're going to get more ringing. That's just how it works. So, but go ahead and put some questions in chat. Hopefully when I'm done talking about the X1, you guys will have more questions that I can come back and answer. So, let's go here. So on my other camera here, oh God, let's adjust this. Come on. There we go. All right. So if you guys are familiar with the X1, you know, it's not as conventional as the other machines. So instead of it having a mess of wires, they went with these ribbon cables, which I've replaced this board twice now. I'm sure people who have this printer will tell you these like to fail. This board's failed on me twice now. So this is not the original board. I'm not a fan of these, but I want to get the ABL on here. So I have moved some things around here to accommodate the wire. So this board has 4 screws on it to actually put it into the extrusion, and obviously it doesn't need all of them. So had to think of a clever way to get this all mounted. So we have this here. So normally there's a screw here, and then there's a screw head here to hold the sensor in. So, but the problem is I need to be able to get the Easy ABL wire behind this board here to route it out, because there's really no other way to do it. I play with a bunch of different ways, but you got to make sure it clears the wheels and everything. So you take this one screw out here. This one you just put the screw head on the back and then put the nut on here to hold this end stop. And then these two hold the board. Like it's not going anywhere. So then you route the sensor cable behind the carriage. So I removed the one bolt that holds the eccentric on the bottom here, so the carriage could then come off, and then I routed the sensor wire in this top channel here, and got these little clips here that go in the extrusion. They're very quick prints, and then you can see here the cable just follows right into the extrusion. So this comes down here. I got 2 more clips at the bottom here, and then there's enough space between the ribbon cable on the bottom here to go into the base here. So it's focusing on that. Let's come on, Sony, you can do it. Come on, Sony, stop being like Logitech. So anyways, the sensor cable comes down here. There's 2 of those little clips here, and then I come down into the base, and then the Easy ABL control box will be in the bottom. So pretty clean install. I was trying to figure out a way to get rid of this, but this can just hang here. And this will go up and down with the gantry with no issue. And now we can have the Easy ABL on here. The bracket is very simple. You just get 2 longer screws. These are M3 by 20s. The fan comes off, you put this between the fan and the carriage, and then there's your sensor mount. So, and because this just rides into the extrusion, it is flat, this goes right in there, no issues. It all came together quite nicely. So, I just got to put the LCD back on, and then to hook the EasyABL up to the X1's board, you do need the little, this is the same cable that we use for the Ender 5 Plus. Is it Ender 5 Plus? I think it's the Ender 5 Plus. We had these made for some Crowley machines, but they luckily work on here. So this will go between the EasyABL control board and the printer's control board to get the signal. So not too bad of an install. Like I said, the hardest part will just be taking that one bolt out to get the cable behind the carriage. You put 6 little clips in to keep it in there, and you stop right here where the ribbon cable is not taped, and then feed it out here and then down into the base. So not too complicated. And I'm pretty happy with that end result. Let's see. Do we have questions now? All right, hang on. Any other reliable U.S. filament brands? Atomic is another one. Printed Solid makes their own now. I know I'm forgetting some, but those are the 2 other ones that come to mind, is Atomic and Printed Solid. Push Plastics is another one. I've ordered from them before. Their stuff's pretty good. And there's another one. Toner Plastics, I think, is another one. I've used all of those, and they all print great. I have no complaints from any of those brands. But my go-to is Coax. So, there's no dog cam. Dog is in the house, John. Robert says Greengate, which I've been hearing a lot about them, a lot of good stuff, has recycled PET G. Alan says he's setting up an SKR14, and when I try to home the access, it moves about 1/16 of an inch and stops. Is there a spot in the firmware that needs changing? Honestly, I don't have enough information to give you an accurate response on that. It could be a bad driver. It could be motor wiring issues. Could be a bad config in your firmware. Try contacting Big Treetech and see if they'll help you. You could also actually try posting in our forum. We do have a section just for control boards. And actually, if you do that, I might be able to, if you post like details like pictures and configs, I might be able to look at it while we're doing this stream here. But there is a control board section. So if you go to our forum here, so if you go to forum.th3dstudio.com, we've got all sorts of sections. So there's the first 2 are, here's our easy board unified, but there's control boards, so you can post whatever you want and get help with your setups here. So it's fairly active. It's not like crazy active, but it's getting there. So if you guys like forums, I want to keep doing stuff on there. But yeah, like when you post on the forum, don't be like, well, my printer's not working. Post your configs, post pictures of the printer, the wiring, the machine itself, like be as detailed as possible, because if you don't, then people are like, well, they're going to ask for that. And then it's more back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, instead of you just giving everything up front. Sean is asking, are there any benefits of using the Raspberry Pi 4 over the 3B for Octoprint? In my opinion, no. I have a mix of everything here. I've got 3Bs, 3B pluses, and 4s. The only reason I'm not using the 3s and 3Bs anymore is because, one, you can't get them. Or, sorry, the 3Bs and 3B pluses is you can't get them. And when you could, they were the same price as the lower end 4s. So, no. Like, yeah, it doesn't. And that's like, something's making a weird noise over there. Oh, it's vibrating. I was like wondering what that noise was. It's the printer on there. It's vibrating stuff. So anyways, it's just wild to me that because Big Treetech sells their stuff so cheap, people are just okay with them not getting any help with it. It's wild. What? Oh. It was a tinfoil hat that Aaron put on top of the alien. I was like, what? I was like, what is that noise? The printer doing like infill really fast. It was vibrating it off. It sounded so weird. Jeff says he got 4 rolls of the Jesse PLA. So disappointed. Brittle and breaks randomly. Both Bondtech and standard. 3 rolls are like that. Well, Dave Randolph is the guy who owns Printed Solid. And I'm sure if you message him, he'll get you straightened out. Because I had some issues with ABS from Coax, and they straighten everything out. You know, you're not dealing with Chinese companies that just, you bought it and they don't give a shit. Like, they know you're probably not going to go through the hassle. Like, but, you know, Printed Solid, if you have an issue, they'll take care of you. Same thing with Coax. You know, that's one of the reasons I don't mind spending a little more buying from them, because I know if I do have an issue, it's going to work. And the thing is, I have less issues because we go through about 50, 60 rolls a month here of coax plastic, and it just works. So, first year I asked, so I might miss it. How do I know when the firmware was updated on the easy config site? Look at what firmware version's on your LCD screen, and then compare it with the one on the site. So if you go to the easy firmware site, it'll tell you what version it's on, which is 2.10. And if you click here, the about, it actually shows it here, 2.10. That's the latest official release. And if you also follow our GitHub tier, we do releases on GitHub. You shouldn't be downloading our firmware from the GitHub. It should always be from the Unified 2 site, which we specifically say here, always download the latest firmware releases from our website here, which takes you to the help center, and these are the zip files we package up. But just compare the one you have. Like if you go to the About Us screen, it'll tell you what version you're running, and just compare it to that. So we don't have any like notification system set up. I don't know if people would even want like a mailing list when we do firmware updates, because sometimes I'll do multiple releases in a week depending on what I'm working on. I've been slowing that down. I think I'm going to limit myself to 1 release a week if I'm like really working on stuff, like get a bunch of stuff done and then I'll release it. The only time I have an issue is if like there's a bug fix or something that needs to be patched, and then I'll push that out right away. But yeah. Yeah, if anybody has any ideas, I mean, I could also post, like, if we have a big enough release, like, where there's a ton of stuff changed, we'll make a post on our social media accounts, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and even post on our website. So the next release coming up will warrant a post, because we're adding a lot more boards and printers too, and I think I'm going to have the Sidewinder X1 in that next release. We do use MailChimp for our marketing, so I think I could set up I think they call them segments, and it's like a separate list from like your main one. So basically I could target that segment, like if you've signed up for firmware updates. But I could also just send it out on our regular mailing list too. I don't think people would mind. We do have quite a big mailing list. I'm very bad at marketing, or utilizing our marketing. Like I've done a marketing emails, but it's been a couple months. I feel like I should do that. So we do actually have a status page, if those of you guys are wondering, because we do want to be transparent about when things are broken. So you can see here when we had some downtime on our shipping. But we do have a status page. You can just go to status.th3dstudio.com, and we're using a platform called InStatus. And if there's any issues, we post a report here. You can see like on the 22nd, we had issue because the SSL cert wasn't renewed on the easy firmware. So we posted a status, and then when we got it resolved, it ended up being something with DNS that was preventing Let's Encrypt from actually updating like it was supposed to. But you can see all of any incidents we have. I just set this up a couple months ago, so there's not much on here, but we're going to stick with this one. So, but yeah. So, I mean, I have MailChimp. I'll look into that. Maybe I could have like a separate page for just a status page on our site. I'm wondering if I could have like a GitHub integration where if it detects I do a new release, then it just posts out to WordPress. I'm willing to bet I could. You know what? We use if this then that for some of our marketing. So when we're done with this stream, there's going to be a trigger that will post this video out to all of our social media accounts. I'm wondering if they have one for that, like a GitHub action. Oh, sorry guys. I will check here. Let me see. The only thing is like they keep we pay for the Pro, but they keep like disabling some of our applets. And I don't know why. I might have to contact their support. Because we have the Pro account. Yeah, I'm willing to bet we could do something with if this then that. Let me see here. Post some more questions in chat, because otherwise, if I don't get any more questions, let's see here. Steve asks, got my easy board finally today. I noticed it doesn't have heat sinks on the drivers. Someone didn't read the FAQ before answering or before asking the question. There's a FAQ in our website here. If you just search EasyBoard FAQ, first thing, does the EasyBoard need heat sinks on the drivers? No, because we properly design our boards unlike the Chinese. If you want to read more, there's a FAQ. It's on our product information, EasyBoard, and it's in here. Here's the FAQ. First thing, do not put, if you put heat sinks on the board, you will void your warranty. Because we've had people put heat sinks on there and they don't pay attention and they short things out around the driver. So no, you do not need heat sinks on your board. Do not put them on the board. Our actual PCB itself is the heatsink because we have that much copper in it. That's how the Trinamics are designed to be cooled. If you see a company putting heatsinks on top of a Trinamic driver, that means they have no idea what they're doing, or they know what they're doing and they're cutting corners by using a cheaper PCB that can't handle the heat. Now, think about this. The driver is designed to sink the heat through the bottom of the chip through the via pad. So there's actually a pad that goes through the board with a bunch of vias to spread the heat into the PCB to spread out. So the chip's heat is through the bottom. Now, on the top of the chip, you have plastic. And it's plastic, and then the chip, and then the outside casing on the bottom. So the top, if you're putting a heatsink on top of the plastic, yes, it's going to remove some heat, but that's not where the heat is designed to be removed from the chip. It's made to be designed to be removed from the bottom of the chip, and you do that with a high copper count PCB. Our easy board is 4 layers of 2-ounce copper, not just 2-ounce copper, because if you specify PCB and you specify 2-ounce copper and it's 4 layers, you're going to get 2-ounce, half-ounce, 4-ounce. You get 2-ounce on the outers. We actually have 2 ounces on every single layer. So we have tons of copper on that board to act as a heatsink like Trinamic intended. The other Chinese companies are using 2-ounce, but it's a standard 2-ounce, meaning 2-ounce, half, 2. Or some of them just use 1 ounce. And Creality has even put Trinamic drivers on a 1-ounce copper board that's only 2 layers. So not even close to what Trinamic recommends. Good question, Silent Rush. So Silent Rush is actually asking about removable drivers. Well, removable drivers, if they're designed correctly, will have the Trinamic chip on the bottom of the PCB, so the one that faces your control board. And those vias will be through the top, and then you put a heatsink on top of that circuit board. So in that case, that does work because it's going to take the heat from the bottom of the chip. So I have, I'll show you what I mean, because I have a properly designed Trinamic. MKS makes some, and I had just so happen to have one here. So I will show you. Oh, this camera This camera moved because I must have bumped it. All right, so let me show you. So this is MKS's 2209. Okay, you see how there's no chip on the top? But if you notice, do you see those little, in the center of the chip, do you see that grid of like little dots? Those are vias. Okay, if we take this out of here, there's the top of the chip on the bottom. So this is properly designed because it's sinking the heat through here. And I don't honestly know how much copper MKS uses on these, but you then take this heatsink, you put it on here, and now it's cooling the back of the chip. This is a fine way to do it. And this is really all you have for these removable drivers. But if you see ones where the Trinamic chip, that little square chip in the center, is on the top, run away. Don't buy them. If they're on the bottom like this, where the pins are, then you're good. Throw a heatsink on the top and call it a day. But luckily, I don't see too many removable ones where they're still putting the chip on the top. I have seen them in the past. But even the Chinese manufacturers, MKS is a Chinese manufacturer, and even big Treetech seem to be doing the removable drivers correctly, in that you sink it to the bottom and then you put a heatsink on top of it. So even if that PCB has low copper content, it doesn't really matter because you're able to put the heatsink on the rear of the board. So, friend is sending me a Rambo for my CR10. Do I have firmware set up for it? No, you're gonna have to dive down the rabbit hole of Marlin. I think it's time for you to learn, Jerry. You've been printing for a while. You think you need to grab a beer and cozy up to some code over the weekend. Yeah, I've seen some 22.8s on top, and that's not good. You want it on the bottom like on the one I just showed you. That's the correct way to do it. Yeah, IMC says SKR Mini E3 V2 have double-sided sponge tape. Yep, I have their board here. I put them on because it's better than nothing, but look at, if you guys don't have to take my word for it, go look at Trinamic's data sheets for the 2208s and the 2209s, and they'll say exactly what I'm saying. They specifically call out 4 layers with a high copper content, and what that means is 4 layers, 2 ounce on every layer. So we've actually been in touch. Our engineer works with the Trinamic engineers to make sure we're designing things correctly, and interpreting the data sheet correctly, and we do that. So that's about it. Oh, you got your thermistor fixed. Awesome. What was the issue? Oh yeah, DB3D Dan. If you guys haven't checked him out, you should do so. But I would give his channel a look because he's given away a bunch of stuff, including your choice of an Easy Board or a $100 gift card to our shop, and an Easy ABL kit, along with a bunch of other stuff. He's got so much stuff. You work with Marlon here. There, you killed one of your Easy Boards. Oh, what did you do, Jerry? Did you short out a hot end? Did you blow a hole in the processor? How did you kill it? Most people, if they kill it, it's because their hot end had an issue, or they're screwing with it, and at 24 volts right into the thermistor, and the processor does not like that. Let me make sure I got. Oh, Lorenzo, sorry I missed your question here. Let me see here. Let's see. He's got a question. Okay, here we go. He's got a question about his Ender 5 Plus. When heating the nozzle before printing, filament leaks out of the nozzle. Is this a result of long Bowden, and could a direct drive solve this? No, it's just physics. It's just your nozzle is going to leak because the plastic's getting molten. One thing you can do is add a retract at the beginning of your G code. Which I have in our, it's actually in our Easy ABL starting G code. So you could take a chunk out of that. Hang on. Easy ABL starting G code. Which is right here. So if you got here, so you can see here, anti-blob retract. So if you add these 4 lines here, this will pull it back. What you could do is, because this is meant to prevent your nozzle from leaving dots as you're probing with the ABL probe, you could add this to your ending G-code so that at the end of a print, it retracts at 2 millimeters, so it's not right there and oozing out. So like I use Simplify 3, so if I go in here and I go to scripts and I hit ending script, if I just put, I'm gonna get rid of that because I don't use that anymore. But if I wanted to have that happen, I can just copy this and then go above everything else, paste that in. So now at the end of a print, it's going to, after it's done printing, so after the last code runs for the actual print itself, it's going to retract it too, and then do the rest of it. So you could just do this, and then that'll retract it. So that should help with the oozing. And if you want that actual code, I will post it right now in the chat. So Jerry, if you want to send it in, I could probably take a look at it, but you need to find out what caused it, because the processors don't just blow holes for no reason. And if it's in a specific area on the chip, I think we have pictures of it, it's definitely the hot end, because if 12 to 24 volts gets into a thermistor pin on any board, you're going to cook the processor, or at the very least damage that input. So, but I mean, it's happened. I did it. I had it happen on my i3 mini, and I ended up having to replace the processor on that board because I couldn't even find a replacement board for that printer. But I've done it once. I haven't done it again. I'm very careful now when I'm working on my hot ends. So it happens to the best of us. But who is asking? Where's his username? Lorenzo. Nope, not Logan. Damn it. Come on, YouTube. Click. There you go. So there's the link. Yeah, I feel like they might have asked me that, but yeah, I mean, if you blow a hole in the processor because of a wiring issue, like that's not something we cover under warranty. So sometimes the chips can be swapped, but we stopped doing the repairs because it was just too time consuming. I'd spend like almost an hour replacing a processor, and you know, we're only making $20 on it. It's not worth my time when I have other stuff I need to be doing, because I'm the only one here that can do the repairs. I'm gonna see if I can find it. I'm assuming there's a ticket here. Let's see. Where is it? I'm looking. I'm curious to see how bad the damage is on there and where the hole is. Yep, I found it. Let's see here. Yep. So Mac actually doodled on it. So let me show here. Let me find it. I have another article here. Thought I had a picture of it. Yeah, so there we go. So this is a picture from one where someone shorted out the hot end here, and you can see this area right here because the IO pin comes in right here. This is the damage that gets burned, and this is the picture from Jerry's, which is the same location. So if you short your hot end into the thermistor input, whether it's intentional or unintentional, or the hot end's got a defect, this is where it'll manifest. Sometimes we've seen them where this whole area is burned, but if it's in this area of the chip, it's because 12 to 24 volts got into it, and this is on the easy board, but it's in the same exact location. So our guys are pretty good at identifying that. But just wanted to set the record straight, because they don't just blow like that for no reason. They have to they have to get a higher voltage. So you send 12 to 24 volts into the I/O pin, it's going to kill the processor, because the max rating on most of those I/O pins is 5 volts. Most of the pins on the LPC that we use are 5 volt tolerant. And if they're not 5 volt tolerant, they're 3.3 volt, but most of them are 5 volt. So 5 volts, you're good. But 12 to 24, it's going to cook the chip. There's really no way to fuse that. We've tried some other ideas. We're playing around with some other circuit designs, but the reality is, if that happens, it's because there's a problem with the printer, or someone was careless and shorted out their hot end, and it's not something we have control over. So, but we're playing with some ideas on when we refresh the boards to see if we can at least try to mitigate it. But the reality is, there is a level of responsibility on the end user to make sure their printers properly set up, there's no issues with it, and then when they're working on it, that they don't short anything out. Because even if your hot end isn't being told to heat, the positive 12 to 24 volts, whatever your printer runs on, is always available at that heater cartridge. So if you're working on it and you take the pliers or you move something and a wire touches where it shouldn't, it's going to send that into the thermistor pins. And you have 2 pins on the thermistor. You have a ground and you have the signal pin. If it goes to the ground, it's just going to short to ground and probably damage the wires. But if it goes in the signal pin, that's when it fries the CPU. So, Resh in Ohio says, best / proper distance from build plate to trigger easy ABL. It's in the manual. The sensor, for the full-size sensor, you mount it 2 millimeters higher than the nozzle, and you calibrate it with the nozzle 2 millimeters off the bed. For the mini, your probe is 1 millimeter higher mounted than the nozzle, and then calibrated 2 millimeters off the bed. So for the 18 millimeter, your total distance from bed to sensor is 4 millimeters. So taking into the calibration distance and the sensor mounting distance. And for the mini, it's 3 millimeters. And the reason we have those is because that's the best accuracy that those sensors perform in, is those distances. So this is, I'm glad you brought that up. So Jerry says, if you tighten the screw to tighten the thermistor, what happens? So if you over tighten your thermistor screw on like the Creality hot ends, they just have these little legs with like this high temp tubing over them. And if you tighten the screw down too much, then it'll short it. Now, if you have also a heater cartridge that has a defect, meaning, and we've seen this happen, we've seen it with E3Ds and Crealities, where part of the casing of that heater is electrified, because inside your heater there's like a ceramic and there's resistance wire. It's usually like nichrome or even canthal, but it's wound to a certain resistance. So yeah, Maddie, I will be sending you your stuff later. When we do giveaways, they're lower on the priority list, and I've had a lot of stuff to do today. So, but I did not forget about you. I have the emails open on my other screen. But anyway, so inside your heater cartridge is a winding of wire, and there's 2 ends of that wire, and then those ends get connected to wires that go back to your printer board. So if that heater cartridge was assembled and part of that wire, when it gets put into the casing, is touching the outside of the casing, your actual heater block can now become electrified. So if you then over tighten the thermistor and you crimp through that insulation, now that voltage that's in the heater block, which normally really wouldn't matter, now finds its way into the thermistor lines and then shorts out your board. So that's the problem. That's one of the benefits where you have like cartridge type thermistors. I'm looking at trying to change over some of our stuff to that, because I have found some decent manufacturers. I'd like to see more companies using those now, and that's something that's on my list for next year, is to refresh our hot ends we offer with like the cartridge type. They will be a little more expensive, but I feel like just for usability, it'd be worth it. Maybe we'll keep both, have a higher end option and a lower end option, because the ones that use just the regular thermistors are a lot cheaper, but they work. So how do you test them before hooking up the next board? So you want to make sure there's no continuity between any of the wires on the heater and your heater block, okay? And what I would recommend doing is apply, if you don't have, before you hook up a board, if you just hook the 2 leads from the heater up to a power supply. And what does it take your hot end to heat? About a minute or two. So, and here's what I want you to do. Heat it up, just straight heat the heater up. Not even connect the board, just apply the 12 volts or 24 volts, whatever it's running on, to that to let the block get hot. Because one guy we had, he kept blowing boards. We couldn't figure out why. We couldn't visibly see anything. So I got on the phone with him and we started going over stuff. I said, okay, go ahead and heat it. And he started heating it up and he started noticing things acting weird. So I told him, kill it. So we tested continuity between the heater wires and the block of the actual heater block and found out that once his hot end got past 170 degrees Celsius, just from the thermal expansion, the wire moved enough to touch the casing and electrify the block. So at room temperature, it was fine. But as soon as you heated it up, it started sending power in because it expanded and the wire touched the wall of the metal casing and then sent it into the heater block and then sent it into the thermistor. Because his thermistor, and he actually had E3D cartridge type, his thermistor also had one of the wires touching the casing. So you have the thermistor line and the heater electrifying the block, and they're just shorting to each other. So if you really want to be careful, you can replace your thermistor, replace your heater cartridge. They're relatively inexpensive pieces. We carry 40 watt and 50 watt heaters. The 50 watt 24 volts are out of stock right now, but they are on order. I don't have an ETA on them because of all the COVID crap still happening and screwing up all this stuff. But yeah, let's see. Scott says he misses the old days when a hot end was a nice, simple nichrome wrapped, hollowed out bolt. I was not in to 3D printing at that point. I did have to suffer through an ANET A8 though, so I didn't have it as easy as the guys that are picking up Ender 3s for their first machine. So, but yeah, but check for continuity. That's why I said everybody should have a multimeter. So you can check for continuity between, you should have no continuity between your heater wires and the heater block. There shouldn't be any continuity. If you do, there's something wrong with the heater. And then, like I said, normally, like let's say your heater block does have the 24 volt positive being put into it. As long as those thermistor wires don't touch the heater block, you're fine, and you probably won't even notice it. I'm sure there might even be printers here we have that, but we don't notice it because the thermistor lines aren't touching the block. The problem comes when the thermistor lines also then touch that block that's electrified, and then that 24 volts wants to find its way to ground or other paths, which would be the CPU's I/O pin, and then kiss your board goodbye. So another thing too is when you guys are cleaning your hot ends or changing nozzles, unplug the printer, heat it up to the temperature, and then work quickly and unplug the printer. Unless you're really good at doing it. I have enough experience where I can swap nozzles on machines and not have to worry about shorting them out. But there was a time when I had a couple close calls and my pliers slipped and almost shorted the board out. So you got to also be mindful of that. Like, you got to take your time, be careful. And like I said, if there's anybody in the chat right now that doesn't own a multimeter, I want you to go buy one today. We don't sell them, and I would recommend getting something. Go to your local hardware store, Ace, Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever. Or if you're really lazy, go on Amazon and buy them. There's a couple decent ones for $20 on Amazon that I have. You know, I've got my nice bench meter, but I've got a bunch of cheap ones all over the place. I got some in the garage, I got some in my office, we got some in the shop, but you should have them. The resistance, what's the resistance between a 12 and 24 volt heater? 24 volts are usually around 14 ohms. And if I recall correctly, 12 volts are right around 4 ohms, sometimes as low as 3. So like 3 to 5 and like 13 to 15 for a 24. So 3 to 5 ohm resistance on a heater for 12 volts and like 13 to 15 for 24 volts. The The thermistors, though, depending on your ambient temperature, usually I see between 80 to 100K ohms of resistance. So depending on your ambient temperature, it could be higher, it could be lower. But if you're in that 80 to 100K ballpark and it's not changing as you're moving the wires, it's safe to say that it's fine. Yeah, there are hot ends you can do one-handed nozzle changes, like the really expensive Slice Engineering Mosquito. Those you can do one-handed nozzle changes, but you're spending $200 for a hot end. And they don't even include a heater cartridge or thermistor at that price, which is wild. I've heard people that like them, but they're very expensive and they nickel and dime you for a lot of stuff. I think Aaron has one here, and he got it. He got it at the event. He got it home. He's like, "There's no heater or thermistor in here." So, last question before we wrap it up, because we are coming up on an hour here. Maddie asked, do you have any tips or any pitfalls to look out for when hot air soldering on PCBs? Got to repair a Nintendo Switch. So, I've seen a lot of people use like Kapton tape or foil to mask off stuff that could get melted, like connectors and those sorts of things. Especially when you're dealing with really complex boards like you see in computers and like game consoles. Try not to overheat certain things. I recommend staying around 300 to 350C, and flux is your friend. Flux is going to help reset things. So I actually I have one of those Nito robot vacuums in here, and the Wi-Fi wouldn't stay connected. So I assumed there was an issue with the chip. Well, I checked the antenna. The antenna was fine. It was connected. What's up, Llama? And I was like, you know what? I can't see anything. It's a couple years old. Maybe there's a solder joint that's broken. So I looked up the chips, found the one that handled the Wi-Fi. I put a bunch of flux on it, hit it with my hot air station, watched the flux get under. It started bubbling, and getting in there. And I'm like, okay, the flux probably made it under. It's probably just reset all the BGA solder balls underneath. We're probably good. So I cleaned it up, cleaned it with flux remover, put it back in. It's working again. So, but there were a bunch of little connectors around there, and I think I used right around 325C, and you just got to make sure to be mindful of where the air is going so it's not going where it should. Like just the angle, like if I angled it like just a little bit different, the heat would start making its way towards the connectors, and then it starts melting. If you're really paranoid and the connectors are not hard to remove, you can always desolder the connectors. Jerry, you can send it in, but I don't know I don't know when I'd have time to do it, but I could put it into my queue here. I'm not officially doing board repairs, but I'll make an exception for you as long as you understand it might be a couple weeks before I actually get to it. And I think I do still have some spare processors here, but just ping me offline. I'll work out the details on that. So I understand things are tight with you right now, so I can work something out. Just as long as you promise me you're going to check all your wires and whatnot, because I don't want you going, oh, I got it fried again. You got to fix the original issue. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people just want us to swap stuff out. And it's like, okay, well, why did the product get damaged in the first place? Because we can send you out a new product and it's going to fail again because there's something else damaging it. So, and there's been quite a few people that don't want to actually fix their printer's issue. They think, let's just keep putting parts in it and maybe it'll stop dying. And it's like, no, there's something going on. They don't just randomly decide to, kill themselves like that. But anyways, Maddie, I will send you... Oh, sorry. I need more tea. I got some Chinese tea. This is actually Chinese tea. I made it iced. That literally is from China. We thought it was like drugs because we had a sign for it, but it was one of our suppliers actually sent us a brick of black Chinese tea, and it's actually really good. I gotta put some more in. Put some more in there. So, anyways, appreciate everybody stopped by, and I hope you guys learned something. And as always, happy printing.